Discover the incredible moment when a millionaire transformed a little girl's life after an amazing encounter. Mia huddled in the corner of her treehouse, her fingers tracing the outlines of a hastily drawn sketch, a wisp of hope pushed against the confines of her cluttered reality. Just a few worn-out pencils and a fraying stack of paper separated her from the outside world. Below, whispers of laughter echoed among her classmates, a cruel reminder of her solitude. Worn, threadbare shoes marked her as different, an outsider they could poke fun at. But Mia felt most alive when her brush danced across paper, capturing colors of a world that seemed always just out of reach. Her mind raced with thoughts of how she could be more than just a girl in a small town, a girl whose single mother toiled endlessly, often returning home too tired to share a word. What if they saw my art? Doubt crept in like the fading light in her shelter, questioning whether she was worthy of their acknowledgement. The bullying haunted her, a darkness lurking behind her every stroke. She feared losing even this sanctuary, feared that her artistic dreams would evaporate like morning mist under a scorching sun. As Mia tried to shake off the weight of uncertainty, news arrived. Her mother brought home an eviction notice, a stark reminder that they didn't just struggle with being unnoticed, they faced losing the very place that kept them hidden from the world. Panic wrapped around Mia like a vice, squeezing the breath from her lungs. What if I lose this place? What if my dreams vanish? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack stood in the grand hall of the charity event, his heart heavy with memories of his own childhood. He felt the all-too-familiar pang of helplessness wash over him as he witnessed a group of kids shoving Mia's art aside, their laughter cutting through the air like knives. Something inside him stirred, an old, familiar fear tangled with the echoes of disbelief. Can I really make a difference? He recalled the days spent dreaming about the possibility of rising above struggle. Now, he was faced with alternatives: invest in companies that would bolster his status or reach out to a girl who reminded him too much of himself. Doubt chewed at his resolve. What if I'm wrong? He thought, his eyes resting on the girl who seemed to shimmer despite the shadows cast by her peers. The pit in his stomach twisted tighter. Would supporting her crush me just like it did growing up? If he poured his resources into Mia's art, convinced by her raw spirit, would he merely be seen as wasting time on a lost cause? Tension mounted as decisions loomed over them. Mia's trembling brush against the canvas mirrored Jack's uncertainty. The world is against you, she felt. And for him? Will they think I'm a fool? As both of their lives teetered on the precipice of hope and despair, the crossroads drew nearer, yet the path ahead remained shrouded in doubt. Would Mia find the strength to believe she could rise above her circumstances? Could Jack silence the chorus of skepticism from his peers? The air crackled with unspoken fears, both aware that everything, every stroke of paint, every flicker of ambition was about to change. But how? Mia's heart raced as she stared at the eviction notice, its stark letters pressing against her reality like a weight too heavy to lift. She could almost hear her art screaming for freedom in the creased paper. Picking up the pencils scattered on the floor, she scratched a line across the canvas, not knowing if it was rage or a desperate plea evolving into form. Shadows loomed outside the treehouse, the falling twilight mirroring her darkening thoughts. What if my art is not enough? The thought slithered through her mind as she dabbed her paintbrush into vibrant colors, each stroke a silent battle against the despair creeping in. The canvas transformed, but the colors couldn't drown out the bitterness gnawing at her spirit. She pulled away, breath hitching in the tightness of her chest, overwhelmed by unworthiness. Meanwhile, Jack lingered in the grand hall, surveying the gala filled with chatter and glimmering lights. It should have been comforting. Instead, each laugh reminded him of laughter that once mocked his ambition. The taunts followed him like shadows, whispering, "You 1T make a difference." The question that plagued him most was not about Mia, but about himself. What am I capable of? Determined to act, he pushed through the crowd, across the soft carpet that felt too plush beneath his anxious feet. He needed clarity, the crackling connection that rose every time he thought of Mia's unyielding spirit. Something about her reminded him that passion flickered fiercely, no matter how dim life's candles might seem. It was time to shatter his own restrictions. However, an inner voice quarreled with his intentions. What if I fail her? What if this sparks another set of cruel words, not just from others but from the mirror back at me? His resolve wavered, but he could not ignore the flame of determination that ignited within him the moment he witnessed Mia create. The uncertainty loomed, but so did purpose. Back in her treehouse, Mia sought refuge within the bristles of her brush, each combination of color an attempt to expel the negativity threatening to consume her. What if she showcased her work to the world? The idea unfurled like petals of a blooming flower. A gallery showing, a chance to connect, a possibility to be seen, yet the fear remained. Do I have what it takes to share this part of me? Mia hesitated, glancing down at the eviction notice again. It was not just an end, it could be a beginning if she dared to let everyone see her truth, her art. Driven by a spark of possibility, she began sketching the outlines of a more vibrant future. Gathering her courage, she pictured launching an art project, something that could not only preserve her passion but draw the attention of those who had underestimated her. Jack arrived at the base of the tree, his heart pounding as he lifted his gaze toward her hiding place. Would she dismiss his presence, or could they forge a connection that could buoy both their spirits? I can help, he thought, the words of promise echoing in the silent garden night. But would she even accept it? As uncertainty teetered between them, moments intertwined, threading common struggles. Each was on the brink of breaking free from invisible chains. Would Mia leap towards the bright unknown, emboldened by Jack's potential support? Would Jack take the plunge into vulnerability, facing his internal fears in support of someone else? The air was electric, a decision clinging to the moment, both drawn toward a powerful intersection of possibility and fear. The night hummed with questions that would shape their future's, decisions born from doubt, yet laced with immense potential. What awaited them both as they stood on the verge of transformation? With hesitation and excitement rippling through the atmosphere, the first step loomed, a defining moment for them both, setting the stage for unexpected revelations. Would they step into the light, or retreat into the shadows that had always defined them? Mia stared at her canvas, the colors swirling together to form chaos. The eviction notice lay abandoned on the floor, a paper reminder of her fears, but something else began to surface in her mind, a flicker of intent fueled by desperation. She couldn't let the shadows swallow her whole. The art she poured onto the canvas was an urgent call to be seen, an invitation to a world that had overlooked her existence for too long. What if my art can change everything? The question blossomed into a somewhat terrifying exhilaration. She took a deep breath, her fingers twitching instinctively toward a fresh canvas, her thoughts racing faster than they ever had before. Could this event, a gallery show, her moment to shine, be the turning point to reclaim her narrative? The doubt crept in again, clawing at her optimism, harsh like the eviction notice she had tucked away. What if nobody comes? What if they see my work and reject it? The familiar sense of inadequacy resurfaced, threatening to overshadow her newfound vision. Yet those harsh thoughts clashed with an intrinsic desire to rise above, built from years of yearning for affirmation through her art. With fingers trembling, she began outlining her project. It was time to create a collection that resonated with her truth, a daring step toward vulnerability. Each brush stroke mirrored her struggle, a testimony of resilience. As hues mixed on her palette, she considered how each stroke represented not just paint but the amalgamation of her experiences, her story. Meanwhile, Jack felt the weight of the gala around him dissolve as he gazed at his phone, recalling the speech he had been preparing. Yet, the words rushed through his mind, chased away by his thoughts of Mia. The image of her focused on her art was mesmerizing. She had this purity in her passion that drew him in, but how could he translate that connection into action? Gone were his earlier hesitations, replaced now by a burgeoning determination to support her. He had always been the shadow in his family's spotlight, tethered to expectations that felt both suffocating and meaningless. Would stepping forward for Mia be the catalyst he needed to break free from his own chains? Anxiety fluttered in his chest like a nervous bird, but he needed to act before the fear rooted him in place. I'll ask her, he decided, pushing through the sense of vulnerability that threatened to swarm him yet again. His feet guided him toward the tree, a bond both of admiration and shared struggle glimmering in the air as he navigated toward the stairway carved into the bark. "Hey, Mia!" he called softly, catching her attention. The gentle hum of the evening transformed into a deafening silence, their unspoken worries echoing around them. She looked down at him, a blend of curiosity and wariness shadowing her face. "I want to help you with your art show," he said, fighting against the tightness in his throat. Offering her a lifeline, he felt his own resolve hardening. "You shouldn't have to do this alone." Mia, however, felt a rush of mixed emotions, a potential ally, but also a reminder of her fears. Was she ready to let someone into her chaotic world? The look in his eyes told her she wasn't alone anymore, yet it also intensified her anxiety. The future loomed like a precipice, and her instincts steeped in self-doubt warned her against the leap. And yet, amid the swirling apprehension, something shifted. The spark ignited a fragile thread of hope. Maybe it was time to trust. "Okay," she whispered, the word hanging weighty between them. Just like that, possibilities expanded in every direction like the strokes of paint on her canvas. She didn't just have to sink into despair or timidly seek ownership of her creativity, she could forge alliances. Mia had spent so much time battling alone, it was terrifying but liberating to think that perhaps, together, they might transcend their limiting beliefs. But as the moment wrapped around them, what would it take for both of them to fully embrace this opportunity for growth? Could forging a partnership reshape their destinies in ways they had yet to imagine? Uncertainty hinted at the fragility of this new alliance, underscoring that the journey ahead would demand not only courage but unwavering honesty. What would happen when they truly faced the measures of their worth and the challenges looming around them? Mia awoke the next day with uncertainty swirling in her chest. The reality of her decision to accept Jack's help was now palpable, thickening the air with both excitement and fear. She sat at her kitchen table, her untouched breakfast growing cold, as visions of her upcoming show danced in her mind, morphing swiftly between hopeful possibilities and daunting setbacks. A million questions clamored for attention. Would she be able to collaborate without losing her voice? Would Jack's presence strip the authenticity from her art, or could it enhance it and infuse their shared experiences into every stroke? She had fought to carve out her identity for so long, the thought of risking that with someone else sent a chill through her. Yet, beneath the anxious tremors, another part of her began to blossom, the realization that she no longer had to stand alone against the torrent of her fears. Determined to channel the anxious energy into productivity, Mia grabbed her paintbrush and approached the canvas. The outline of her show flickered in her mind, each piece a chapter in her story, piecing together her essence through color and form. She envisioned a collection titled, Fragments of Resilience, an exploration of yearning, bitterness, and ultimately, hope. Hours blurred into one another as she worked fervently, her paint-splattered hands deftly weaving emotions into each brushstroke. The act became a catharsis, untangling the knots of her existence, one hue at a time. She felt fiery and consumed by purpose, and with every layering of color, she pushed through surfaces of self-doubt. When the sun began to set, painting the sky with oranges and purples, she felt a fresh surge of resolve. She picked up her phone and sent Jack a text, "Can we meet to discuss ideas for the show?" The response came quickly, igniting a flicker of warmth in her chest. "Absolutely. I'll bring coffee." As they gathered later that evening in her cluttered studio, Jack walked in with a buoyant energy, the aroma of the coffee wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. He surveyed the array of colors that brightened the room and nodded in appreciation. "It looks incredible in here. Can you tell me about your vision?" Mia felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders. This was her moment to open up, to guide Jack into her world, but fear flicked like a candle flame within her. I want to present a collection that speaks to resilience, that shows not just the struggles but the courage to keep going. Each piece will have a story behind it. Jack leaned in, affixing his gaze on her, his interest palpable. What if we integrated your stories into the exhibit? Like, maybe we could have small placards next to each piece. It could provide context for the viewers. The suggestion was intriguing yet invasive, a glimpse into the very core of her being. I've never done that before, she admitted. What if sharing too much makes me vulnerable? What if they don't understand? There's strength in vulnerability, he urged softly. Trust that your story deserves to be heard, just like your art. Your truth might be the connection others are searching for. His words resonated, reverberating deep within her. Could it be true? What if the very act of sharing her journey could amplify the impact of her art? As the idea settled in, it coaxed forth a faint pulse of ambition. Then we'll do it, she finally said, the affirmation rolling from her lips. I'll write the stories. As Jack pored over the notes they began drafting together, Mia felt the collaboration weaving threads of intimacy between them. This partnership was transforming her process. She was drawing strength from shared purpose, a trust slowly unfurling against the background of her long-standing solitude. But the doubt still lingered just beneath the surface, reminding her of the boundaries her heart had carefully constructed. Would she remain intact while navigating this newfound partnership? With every moment spent planning together, she wondered what would happen when they reached the raw, unpolished edges of their stories. It was a tightrope she had never walked before. As the hours slipped away, Mia felt the weight of not only her aspirations but also her fears. Could she face the truth of her past while inviting another into her personal narrative? The path ahead was uncertain, but the desire burned stronger, a flame urging her to step into the unknown. Still, the question loomed, would she find the courage to embrace her vulnerability, and would Jack be the ally she needed, or would the boundaries of their partnership expose her most sensitive fragility? The realization that they were bound together in this venture brought hope but also dread. The real challenge lay ahead, demanding honesty and bravery that might shatter her carefully maintained facade. What awaited them as they forged deeper into the heart of her art and their collaboration? Would the beauty they created triumph over their insecurities, or would the shadows of the past resurface, threatening to dismantle their shared journey? Mia awoke the next morning, the weight of her ambitions heavy on her chest. She had committed to exposing her vulnerabilities and sharing her narratives, but a cloud of apprehension hung over her. She slipped from the warmth of her bed and wandered to her studio, where the remnants of the previous night's efforts remained, canvases filled with a spectrum of emotions and the unfinished stories that lingered in her mind. She turned to her easel, where an empty canvas waited, taunting her. The initial thrill of collaboration with Jack felt simultaneously intoxicating and smothering, like a sweet song that turns sour when played too often. Her stomach twisted as she thought about the placards that would bring her personal revelations alongside her work. What if her stories were met with indifference? What if they peeled back layers she was not prepared to reveal? Taking a deep breath, she picked up a brush, attempting to immerse herself in the paint that had served as her sanctuary. The first stroke was hesitant, as if her hand was unsure of its path. She tried to channel her fears into the canvas, merging the colors that expressed her wrestling heart. But the brush hesitated. Instead of bold gestures, she was left with muted tones that reflected her internal struggle. It was during this standoff with her own doubt that her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Jack, suggesting a brainstorming session at a coffee shop. The invitation felt like a lifeline, offering a chance to escape her cocoon of self-doubt, but a part of her resisted. Did she truly want to expose the fragile thoughts simmering just beneath her surface? Yet Mia craved the dialogue. A conversation about her stories could catalyze the growth she yearned for. Still, it was tinged with anxiety. Would they be met with excitement or judgment? As she made her way to the cafe, her mind darted through potential scenarios. Jack's view of her art would shape how she perceived herself, Would she be the thoughtful artist or the overanalyzing critic of her own heart? Just the thought filled her with a mix of dread and exhilaration. Upon entering the cafe, she spotted Jack seated at a table near the window, his own sketches scattered before him, a testament to engagement and inspiration. He looked up and offered a genuine smile that seemed to ease some of her tension, if only momentarily. "Hey, Mia. I was thinking about how to structure our stories for the pieces," he said, his enthusiasm vibrant. "Why don't we start with your strongest piece and build from there?" Mia nodded, sipping her coffee, feeling the warmth seep into her consciousness. She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts as she drafted a mental outline of the piece she was most proud of, one that told of a pivotal moment in her life, a time when art had shielded her from despair. But just as the outline solidified, another wave of doubt crashed. Could she share the raw truth without succumbing to the insecurities buried beneath? "Are you okay?" Jack's concerned voice pulled her from her reverie. "I'm just feeling a bit exposed." Vulnerability lingered heavily in her words. The notion of letting someone in, of sharing her inner landscape, made her feel like a tightrope walker, swaying between fear and determination. "Look," he said, his eyes steady and sincere, "your story is powerful. It's what will draw people in. Embracing that truth could not only elevate your art but also transform you." His faith in her ignited something deep within. This partnership could indeed transform their paths if she let it. As they opened up about their visions, tiny fissures in the wall she had fortified around her heart began to form, light seeping like dawn breaking through darkness. As the conversation flowed, each question Jack posed prompted Mia to recall her past with clarity. Yet, the deeper they probed, the more the weight of her hidden insecurities surfaced, demanding acknowledgement. Would unveiling this part of herself be the breakthrough or the unraveling of her artistic identity? By the end of their session, Mia felt a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation. She had taken a step forward, forging new ground fraught with risk, but always exhilarating in its potential for growth. The question that lingered in her mind was razor-edged: could she step fully into her vulnerability, allowing it to inform her art without breaking her? As Jack gathered his notes to leave, he looked at her with a determination that mirrored her own. "Tomorrow, let us dive deeper. The time has come to face what's in those stories." Mia met his gaze, her heart pounding with both fear and excitement. The journey ahead promised to be tumultuous, but what if the very act of confronting her past would render her stronger than ever? The essence of her art yearned to be free, but the truth weighed heavily on her soul. Could she embrace both? Would the vulnerability that scared her the most also fuel her rise? Mia sat in her studio early the next day, her mind racing a mile a minute. She couldn't shake off the conversation from the previous evening, where the question of vulnerability had danced like a shadow at the edges of her thoughts. Today, she would delve into her strongest piece, laying bare the layers of her life, the moments that shaped her into the artist she was meant to be. With Jack's encouragement still echoing in her ears, she felt a flicker of determination flicker within her chest. The canvas loomed before her, a blank slate that no longer felt menacing but rather like an opportunity. She picked up her brush again, her grip firmer this time. The first stroke was bold, sweeping across the canvas, turning vibrant reds and yellows into a chaotic portrayal of her most painful memory, a time when art had been her sole refuge during a family crisis. Each line and color poured from a wellspring of raw emotion she had never before allowed herself to explore fully. As she painted, memories flashed before her, a kaleidoscope of laughter muffled by tears, moments of solitude where she had used art as a lifeline. The brush became an extension of her very soul, guiding her hands through the whirlpool of emotions. However, the deeper she went, the more the undercurrents of fear threatened to capsize her vessel. Would this piece expose her too much? Would her raw honesty backfire by alienating her from the very audience she longed to connect with? Midway through her work, she took a step back, panting slightly at the emotional intensity she had released. There was beauty in the chaos, a clarity that both bewildered and invigorated her. But there was also an impending dread. What if she had strayed too far from the carefully curated image she had come to present to the world? This pointed knife of doubt cut deep into her resolve, yet it also ignited a fire within her that longed for authenticity. Her phone vibrated, pulling her from the depths of turmoil. It was Jack, his words a lifeboat streaming through her momentary storm. "Ready for today's session? I can't wait to hear about your piece." Mia numbed the excitement swirling in her stomach. Today wasn't just about sharing a piece, it meant bearing the very essence of her struggles. She texted back quickly, "Yes, can't wait." But as she hit send, her heart sank with the realization of what lay ahead. The unveiling would be more than just showing a work of art, it was akin to exposing her heart and soul. When Mia arrived at the cafe again, she felt the weight of the moment in the air, the anticipation and fear coiling into a tight knot in her stomach. Jack looked up and smiled, his warmth grounding her in the moment. Maybe, just maybe, sharing her art would serve as a bridge, connecting her heart to his, forging a partnership on a level she hadn't anticipated. "Shall we dive in?" he asked eagerly, and despite her growing anxiety, she nodded. They found a quiet corner in the cafe, where the ambience was filled with the hum of creativity. As Mia began explaining the processes behind her painting, she could feel the edges of her reluctance softening under Jack's attentive gaze. The fear of judgment she had clung to like a security blanket started to disintegrate with every word she spoke. She revealed her fears and uncertainties, fumbled over painful memories, and as she shared, she discovered something unexpected, assurance in her truth. Jack listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that drove her deeper into self-awareness. "Why did you choose those colors?" he inquired at one point. As she articulated her choices, clarity illuminated connections she hadn't seen before. The painting was not just an outpouring of her sadness, it was a testament to resilience, a declaration of transformation. For every brush stroke that emerged from despair, there lay beneath it a counterforce of hope, a phoenix rising from the ashes. Mia's heart raced as she grasped the gravity of this revelation. Facing her vulnerabilities was empowering, perhaps it could unearth a new appreciation for her work, leading her toward new artistic realms. The idea that her struggles could inspire others, this thought fueled a fire within. But as the session drew to a close, a new layer of anxiety unfurled itself. Jack had unlocked something in her, yet the battle to balance exposure and the integrity of her artistic identity raged on. Could she harness this newfound understanding to create something profoundly impactful, or would the weight of her revelations crush her spirit? "Let us finalize your thoughts about the piece tomorrow. I think we're on the cusp of something significant," Jack said, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "But what if exposing this part of me changes everything?" Mia challenged, an edge of worry creeping into her voice. "Then let it change you," Jack replied, unflinching. Mia left the cafe with the tension of uncertainty clinging to her like a second skin. As she prepared for the next day, she realized she was standing on the precipice of transformation, a pivotal moment looming ahead. But was she truly ready to embrace the full spectrum of her narrative, despite the risks? Mia spent the night spinning in restless contemplation, the shadows of her studio morphing into a surreal gallery of doubt and determination. The painting, vivid in her mind, whispered promises of potential transformation. Sleep eluded her, replaced by a pulsing anticipation for the morning. Each brushstroke she'd laid on the canvas intermingled with fears and hopes, an intricate tapestry she now had to navigate. Morning light crept into her studio, flooding it with warmth, yet the chill of uncertainty settled in her bones. Standing before her half-finished canvas, she felt as though it were asking her questions she wasn't ready to answer. Was she prepared to welcome criticism? To stand naked before the world, leaving herself exposed? Her mind flickered back to Jack's unwavering gaze, the way he had seen her, truly seen her beyond the fear and the surface-level persona she often wore like armor. Could she transform this raw honesty into a narrative that would resonate? She sketched out the day ahead, like a quick brushstroke, knowing every moment was vital. Their session would be the crucible where her fear of exposure clashed with her desire for authenticity. As she made her way to the cafe, her heart raced not just from the anticipation of sharing her work, but of a revelation that felt larger than her art. Each step pulsated with a sense of urgency. She was on the brink of something greater. What if today could serve as a defining moment, not just in her artistic journey, but in her personal growth as well? Upon entering the cafe, the familiar aroma of coffee and pastries flooded her senses, grounding her in the moment despite the tornado of thoughts swirling in her head. Jack was already seated, a notebook sprawled before him, ready to dive deep into her creative psyche. "Mia," he greeted, his enthusiasm infectious. "Ready to peel back those layers?" She smiled, but her insides churned. It was a simple invitation, yet it sent waves of apprehension coursing through her. "Yes, let us do this." As they sat down, she tentatively placed her hands on the table, feeling the solid surface contrast with the shakiness within. "Let us start with your painting," Jack urged, leaning in as if he were about to unlock a secret vault. Mia inhaled, the familiar scent of coffee buzzing around her like a protective shield. Opening her mouth to speak about the piece, she hesitated. Would sharing this raw side of her alienate her or create a bridge into the hearts of others? As she began to articulate the emotions behind the swirling colors and chaotic forms, she was surprised by the fluidity of her thoughts. The vulnerability felt less like a dagger and more like a lantern, illuminating the intricate patterns of her past. Jack's questions guided her through her memory like a skilled captain steering a ship through turbulent waters. With each answer, she unearthed deeper layers of her self-resilience, pain, growth, and hope. "Why does this piece resonate with you so strongly?" He leaned back, giving her space to reflect. Mia paused, realizing the truth she had been avoiding. "It represents the struggle I've faced in balancing vulnerability with the need for acceptance. Every layer I paint is not just an element of art, it's a reflection of how I've grown from each moment, painful or not." Jack nodded appreciatively, and in that shared silence, she felt a surge of clarity. She understood she had the power to mold her own narrative. She didn't have to be defined by the pain but rather uplifted by it. "I think you're on the cusp of something remarkable too," Jack said, breaking the silence. "It's about more than just the painting, isn't it? It's about claiming your own story." Mia's heart raced as she considered his words. Was she truly prepared to stop living behind the facade? But as she looked at Jack, genuinely engaged, a flicker of courage ignited within her. She could embrace her truth and let it weave its magic, bridging the gap between her past experiences and her present vision. As their session wrapped up, she realized that tomorrow would beckon. With a new challenge, she had to bring this intimate truth into her work, not just as a concept but as a lived experience. "Tomorrow, we'll focus on the unveiling," Jack said, his voice steady. "You're ready for this, Mia. Trust yourself." Leaving the cafe, the stakes felt higher than ever. Mia stood at the edge of evolution, her resolve hardening like the paint on her canvas. But with newfound heights came the looming shadow of doubt. What if she failed to honor her truth in the art she created? As she walked home, the question lingered in her mind like an unfinished brushstroke on the page of her life. What form would her next masterpiece take, and would it capture all she wanted to express? Tomorrow would demand a decision that could either liberate her spirit or constrain it further. The sun rose with an almost palpable intensity, illuminating the studio in warm hues that mirrored Mia's newfound determination. Today was the day she would unveil her truth, both to herself and the world. As she prepared her materials, her heart thumped with an anxious rhythm, echoing the weight of expectations both external and internal. Mia brought her paintbrush close, observing how its bristles danced lightly against the dried palette. She thought about each stroke she had designed during countless nights filled with anxiety, always wondering if her creations would resonate. Today, however, she was ready to let loose the boundaries she had placed around her emotions. She needed not to create just art, but an expression of her authentic self. She began to paint, every splash of color a declaration. The canvas soon filled with swirling patterns that mimicked storm clouds clashing with sunlit skies reflective of her struggles and triumphs. But as the shapes began to take form, doubt crept in like a shadow. What if vulnerability left her exposed? What if criticism fractured her newfound resolve? Yet, as she stood, paintbrush poised, the memories of her conversations with Jack echoed his encouragement, the way he had seen beyond her fears. She focused deeply, summoning the courage he had ignited. This artistic venture would not merely depict her past but contour a fresh narrative. Each layer wouldn't just represent struggle, they would echo resilience, the themes of rebirth, of claiming joy through adversity. Hours slipped by, and as Mia immersed herself in her work, the chaotic ensemble of colors began to coalesce. The painting slowly transformed into a cathartic landscape, depicting a journey of self-discovery. But deep inside, she knew the act of creating would only be half of the challenge. The real test lay ahead, the exhibition where she would reveal her truth. A flutter of apprehension coiled in her stomach as she thought about standing before an audience, sharing not just the painting but the personal experiences behind it. She would have to face the possibility of judgment head-on. Doubts rushed back, almost suffocating her artistic flow. What if they didn't understand her? What if they laughed or dismissed her effort? With a determined breath, she set down her brush. Her gaze fixed on the canvas, it pulsed with life and emotion, reflecting her battles. She had risked herself during the last exploration, perhaps it was time for another leap of faith. What if she chose to transform her vulnerability into an inspiring narrative, one that others could relate to and learn from? As she moved closer to the canvas, she could see the smaller details, a sprinkle of green among the abyss of deep blues, perhaps a metaphor for hope amidst sorrow. Would this piece, with its chaotic beauty, challenge conventions? Was it simple enough to resonate while complex enough to inspire introspection? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden ping from her phone. Jack's message lit up her screen, "Can't wait to see your creation today. Remember, just be yourself, you've got this." Underneath his words, she felt a swell of confidence. Today would be the day she unshackled herself from the weight of her fears. No longer painting for approval but rather as a testament to her journey. As the hour drew closer for her exhibition, Mia dressed carefully, contemplating her appearance. She donned a simple dress, one that allowed her to move freely while remaining comfortable. Yet, her hair and makeup felt like masks held together by insecurity. Was she dressing for herself or to meet the expectations of an audience? Tension brewed in her gut, a pungent reminder that societal pressures still whispered doubts into her ear. Would her image detract from the essence of her art? A decision loomed as she stood at the threshold of her studio. Would she allow herself to reveal her true self amidst the vibrant mix of colors, emotions, and vulnerability? She took a step back, inhaling deeply. Today was not about perfection, it was about authenticity. Stepping into the exhibition space, the scent of fresh paint and polished wood filled her lungs, aesthetics and emotions colliding all around. With each step toward her canvas, the vibrant palette of life pulsed beneath the light, a stark contrast to the shadows of doubt that still danced in her mind. Was she ready to embrace what the world would say? Mia's heart pounded in anticipation as she approached the moment of revelation, poised to conquer her hesitation. The crowd thrummed with curiosity, but two words echoed in her mind: trust yourself. How would they react when they witnessed the true reflection of her soul? Would it liberate her spirit, or reveal her vulnerabilities in ways she could not predict? The crowd buzzed with murmurs, each voice a reminder of the scrutiny that hung thick in the air. Mia closed her eyes momentarily, grounding herself in the present. The cacophony faded, replaced by the steady beat of her heart, the only rhythm that felt true amidst the chaos. What if, beyond fear, there was power? Opening her eyes, her gaze locked onto the canvas. The colors shimmered under the soft lighting, swirling and alive. It no longer felt like a mere piece of art, it embodied her flaws and brilliance intertwined. It was an invitation into her vulnerability, a silent cry for understanding. As attendees began gathering around her work, Mia pulled a deep breath, centering her thoughts on authenticity rather than perfection. 20 minutes until your talk, someone whispered, a gentle reminder piercing through the haze of anticipation. The words ignited her anxiety anew. Could she truly articulate the depths of her journey? Speaking openly about her struggles had been a mere fantasy until now. It was one thing to create, it was another to share the essence behind her creation, raw and unfiltered. The moment she had strategized in her mind turned fluid, shifting in ways she hadn't anticipated. Did she have the capability to connect her narrative with the canvas? This was more than just showcasing a painting, it was about unveiling the core of who she was, an amalgamation of fears, aspirations, and the unyielding need to be seen. Her mind raced back through a timeline of regrets and hopes, fearful that her words could crumble like brittle structures under duress. Would they dismiss her story outright? Or worse, could they use it against her? She was fighting back the instinct to hide, to withdraw into the safety of anonymity, but there was also a flicker of determination, a flame striving to break free. She took a step forward, heart racing, forging a path beyond self-doubt. A small group edged closer, eyes widening in wonder as they absorbed the chaotic beauty of her work. For the first time, Mia saw the reactions unfolding in real time. There were gasps of recognition, softness in their expressions, some leaned in closer as though searching for secrets hidden within her layered strokes. The buzz shifted, and she could almost taste their curiosity. Glistening drops of sweat formed at her brow as she poised herself to break the silence. She could speak about the colors, about the struggles behind each stroke, how the deep blues embodied sorrow and the striking greens represented hope amidst turmoil. Was this enough? Would they relate? Amidst the swirling thoughts, one simple truth emerged: her authenticity needed to prevail. If her art had resonated, perhaps her words could, too. "Thank you for your interest in my work," she started, her voice quivering slightly but steadying with each syllable. "This isn't just a painting. It's my story." And just like that, she plunged into the depths of her experiences, noting the mirror of darkness and light that shaped her. As she spoke, the weight of her past began to transform into a shared connection, bridging the gap between artist and audience. Her narrative unfolded, raw but liberating, revealing the fears she faced and the triumphs she had embraced. But as she neared the end of her speech, she faced an unexpected audience reaction, a ripple of thoughtful silence followed by quiet whispers. Were they contemplating? Judging? Or perhaps considering their own intertwined narratives? Anxiety flew back, but she pressed on, realizing her true battle wasn't over. By the time she finished, her breath quickened. The faces around her were inscrutable, immersed in the whirlwind of her truth. Would they embrace her vulnerability or retreat into their comfort zones? Just as she caught a glimpse of a smile from a young woman near the front, a wrenching uncertainty formed in her gut. Had she offered her heart only to pocket deeper judgments? Would this attempt at authenticity yield anything meaningful? A clamor began as more people approached her canvas. She sensed the palpable shift in energy. Curiosity morphing into genuine appreciation, but it raised new questions. Were these connections real? Or just fleeting moments, soon to be forgotten like the many colors on her palette? As murmurs of admiration flowed, one voice in the crowd rose above the others, catching her off guard. "What made you vulnerable enough to share this?" The question pierced her, uncertain yet compelling. Mia's heart raced at the unexpected inquiry, the world around her blurring as she gathered her thoughts. This was a deeper dive than she had anticipated, a call to explore the very core of her journey. Was she truly prepared to confront the full spectrum of that vulnerability? As she stood there, confronted by the pressing eyes of her audience, she questioned her next response. Could she embrace even more of her complex narrative? The moment had come to reveal not just a painting, but the soul behind the art. Would she heed the call, or would she retreat once more into the comforts of her uncertainty? Mia stood before her audience, breath caught in her throat as she grappled with the weight of the question. This was at the defining moment where her art met her truth. As she scanned the faces in front of her, a strange mix of apprehension and empowerment flooded her. She realized it wasn't just her painting they were looking at, they were searching for something deeper. "I share my story," she began, her voice steadying as the words poured forth, "because art was the one place I felt safe to express the chaos inside me. Each stroke on the canvas is a testament to battles fought and fears overcome. The sincerity in her voice captivated her audience, drawing them into her world, a world woven with vibrant threads of struggle, hope, and fierce resilience. As she spoke, clarity washed over her. This was no longer just about her work, it became a collective journey of vulnerability. Each nod, every scrutinizing gaze, reflected an understanding, a recognition that resonated within. She thought of Jack and how his faith had helped illuminate the path she was now navigating. Each moment of doubt transformed into an acknowledgement of her worth, not only as an artist but as an individual deserving of respect. Every person has a story, a struggle hidden beneath the surface, she continued, emboldened by the connection already forming between her and her audience. Art allows me to share that, to challenge perceptions, and to embrace the raw, intricate parts of our existence. As the final words left her lips, silence enveloped the room, hanging like the anticipation before a storm. Her heart raced as she searched the crowd for their reactions. And there, amidst the stillness, she saw it, a girl with tears glistening in her eyes, a woman who stood huddled with her arms crossed, absorbed in reflection. It felt as though Mia had handed them all a piece of her soul, and in return, they lent her their undivided attention. When the spell finally broke, applause erupted. The sound was like a warm wave crashing over her, washing away the remnants of doubt that had clung tightly to her psyche. Emotions fluttered in her chest, she had faced her fears head-on and emerged victorious. In that moment, Mia transformed from the shy girl in the treehouse to the confident artist on a mission, her work no longer confined to her solitary space. This was her acknowledgement, a recognition not only of her talent but of her story. With newfound resolve, she stepped forward, engaging the crowd. They had questions, eager to delve deeper, and together they bridged the gap between artist and observer. Discussions sparked about the struggles each individual faced, creating an intimate dialogue where vulnerability met understanding. Jack stood at the fringes, pride swelling within him as he witnessed Mia's emergence. The girl who had once doubted her worth was now engaging people with articulate confidence, converting her pain into a platform for empowerment. This was tangible growth both for Mia and for him as ally and supporter. As the echoes of appreciation coursed through the room, Mia embraced her surroundings, understanding that this triumph was more than just a successful exhibition, it was a reclamation of her voice, an affirmation of her worth, an illustration of the power born from vulnerability. At the end of the event, she received offers to display her work in local galleries and invitations to speak at community events. This external recognition served as validation of her personal journey, confirming the strength that lay within vulnerability. Mia looked toward Jack and saw excitement mirrored in his expression. He had witnessed her transformation, the resolute spark of her potential igniting brilliantly as she embraced her past while stepping toward a brighter future. Satisfied with her experience, Mia stood a little taller, her spirit unshackled and proud. She had proven herself, not only as an artist but as a voice echoing the unspoken stories of many. And in that moment, she realized, she had conquered not just the fear of judgment but the chains of self-doubt that had held her captive for so long. With a heart now free to create, she was ready for whatever came next, not just for herself, but as an inspiring testament to others silently navigating their paths. The future beckoned, resonating with exhilarating possibilities, the culmination of her dreams finally within reach. Mia had transformed her fear into a foundation for success, establishing herself in the world anew, with confidence radiating through every stroke of her brush. Now was the moment for action, for her art to transcend limitations, and for her voice to uplift others like her. If you found this journey of transformation inspiring, you need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories that delve into overcoming life's challenges. Leave a like immediately to feed the algorithm and support our community of dreamers. Comment your thoughts and theories about Mia's incredible journey. Your perspective matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness these powerful transformations. Let us spread the message together.